A state can do a lot of terrible things to its citizens. It sometimes sends them to die in a meaningless war, puts them behind bars for breaking the law, or takes their property away from them. This needs justification, and that is exactly what philosophers work on when they talk about the problem of political authority. In this video, we will take a closer look at why the problem of political authority might not be easily solvable, and what we should do in this case. One of the more well-known ideas to justify political authority is that of the social contract. In its idealized form, it argues that the citizens of a state consented to the state's right to make laws and to enforce them. You can find versions of this argument in the works of early modern philosophers, such as John Locke, Thomas Hobbes, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. John Locke's work was even an inspiration for the US Declaration of Independence. What's wrong with the social contract theory? Simply put, none of us ever signed a contract in which we consented to the state's authority over us. And because we didn't, the state doesn't have authority over us. It's that simple. This objection is quite obvious, so philosophers naturally thought of a response. Of course, citizens didn't explicitly consent, but they at least implicitly consented to the state's authority. How? For example, by enjoying the benefits that the state provides in terms of security, roads, hospitals, and so on. But the implicit consent argument has problems too. Why would the fact that I was born into a random state and continued to live in it mean that I endorse its authority? It's not that I have much choice not to use the roads and stuff, and forcing me to decide just to leave or accept the laws is extortion, not consent. So the social contract argument does not seem convincing. Okay, so we never consented to the state, neither explicitly nor implicitly. But maybe the state can have authority without consent. The fairness idea of political authority was popularized by the American philosopher John Rawls. The basic idea is to start from the assumption that the state is more or less a political community that is engaged in a collaborative enterprise. We all limit our freedom to a certain degree in order to provide public goods such as healthcare, security, infrastructure, and so on. Fairness requires that if you benefit from an enterprise, you also contribute your fair share if you are able to do so. This is the same as in every other domain of interaction, where everyone is expected to do their part. In the context of the state, having these benefits requires us to adhere to the law and the state's authority to make laws. Thus, being fair means accepting political authority. Does this argument work? Not really. Without consent, fairness does not seem to cut it either. After all, I can't just start putting my old books into your mailbox and after I see that you read them, charge you for it because you benefited from it. Simply benefiting from an arrangement does not seem to give you any rights, as long as I never did anything to become part of that arrangement, especially if I have no choice but to be part of it. Is there another option? Yes, let's throw out the idea of consent. There is a much simpler answer to the problem at hand. Without the state, we'd be in a constant state of war with each other, and that's why we need it. A utilitarian justification of state authority might say something along these lines. As long as having the state is useful, it has the authority to make laws and enforce them. But is it really? For many laws, this is certainly not the case. We probably don't need many of the drug laws or other laws that many states have which restrict a person's liberty. It's also unclear if we'd go into a state of war if the state stopped punishing fare dodgers, and no one gets a benefit from dying in a meaningless war. So it's quite unclear if having a state is really worth the costs. If the state does not have authority, then any state is unjust, and we should not obey its laws. This might be the most straightforward implication of the arguments presented here. So anarchism it is. But some philosophers came up with their own version of this theory. Philosophical anarchism. Philosophical anarchism argues that states do not in principle have authority, but we should still comply with those laws that are independently justified, even though the state lacks the authority to enforce these laws. That means we should still respect the law against killing other people, assaulting them, or stealing, as these are very likely morally justified even if the state has no authority over the law. But then again, other laws that do not have independent moral justification should be regarded as illegitimate and be protested against. But the most straightforward solution might just be to endorse full-blown anarchism. If the state does not have authority, then we shouldn't obey it. We should abolish it if at all possible. This position comes with its own set of problems, but these will have to be the topic of another day. Thanks for watching this short introduction to political authority. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps a lot.